They try to
But
hide
if
that.
there's a war, then Iran will do to the US much more damage, much infinitely more damage than last time around. And one has to remember that Iran's military is its missile and drone capabilities is not focused on Israel. Most of Iran's capabilities, in fact, the vast majority of Iran's missile and drone capabilities are directed at US forces in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean.
The one thing that I will say that gives me a little bit of hope in this world is that despite the fact that Trump has bombed, almost every country on the face of the earth in his first term, he has bombed Africa, he has bombed Latin America, he's bombed several citizens of several countries in Latin America. He's bombed several countries in the Middle East, right? Escalating tensions against China in the South China Sea, the first island chain, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, right? Despite all of that, we have seen that a lot of the people close to Trump have vociferously condemned him in the process and said this is not the right way. Tucker Carlson being the main one. Candace Owens also being someone who has participated in this. And that's very heartwarming. Now, what's so incredible is you even have people like Jeffrey Epstein's PR man, Steve Bannon, that have participated in this condemnation. Now, I'd have to say that there's probably a little bit of strategy behind that because Matt Gaetz claims that Steve Bannon is going to be running for president awfully soon, which will be very interesting to watch. Not because I will be supporting him, but it's just going to be, it's going to make for a very interesting election season. But take a look at this. This is Steve Bannon in conversation. We're going to play a short clip with Kurt Mills of the American Conservative talking about the insanity of what Trump just said in his conversation with Netanyahu, effectively approving a second war in Iran. We have it. He did it. Everyone was wondering. The media was saying he's not going to do it. He did it. Take a listen.
I mean, clearly not. The question is about how to bring this home and how to score a touchdown on it. I think the Israelis really don't want the wars to end. So I think it's important to tier this. And I think among the Israelis, Netanyahu really doesn't want him to end. And I think you see this rhetorically, or perhaps I should say in Israeli propaganda, that they'll effectively operate and co-opt any talking point that they need to. So they've seen the writing on the wall on defense spending. The U.S. Does not want to continue funding defense expenditures for the Israelis. It makes no sense. It's not voguish on the right to advocate for it. And so they'll move the goalposts and say, oh, that's okay. We don't actually support defense spending. But then they'll lobby for all other types of military support in back channels. And I think that's what you saw today. I mean, if Israel really didn't need the United States, what is Netanyahu doing here days before the new year?
That's very true. The whole direct aid to Israel thing is extremely unpopular. I know Trump is negotiating some like 20 years, $70, $80 billion aid deal for Israel. But the Israelis are very smart, to be more strategic about that and say, Trump, can you give Boeing $8.6 billion and then Boeing will give us 25 fighter jets? Frame it as like some sort of an American investment in an American company, just supporting the blue collar workers. Totally not like the shareholders of Boeing are going to get the lion's share of that $8.6 billion investment. The Israelis always act like, well, we buy a good deal from the American defense contractors. What reality are we living in? Are we going to act like when Trump gives $8.6 billion to Lockheed Martin or Boeing or Raytheon, that the blue collar factory workers at these companies are getting massive pay increases? Of course not. Of course not. Their salaries, their wages stay exactly the same. Absolutely nothing. As the goods in this country, the prices of basic goods continue to rise. It's the biggest gaslighting in the world when people say like, oh, but we're effectively supporting American defense contractors when we are buying weapons from you. No, you're supporting the shareholders. The shareholders of those companies are lining their pockets. That's who's winning, not American citizens.
What is Netanyahu in private briefings with the Secretary of War and the President of the United States demanding potential U.S. strikes on Iranian ICBM missiles, not nuclear weapons? The goalposts have already moved from that. That was the Israeli talking point since the 90s. And because they know they'll enrage President Trump by claiming that the Iranians maybe still have nukes, I think they probably do, then they're moving to these missiles. Which is just, if that's the criterion, as I said in the earlier segment, we're going to war tonight. And so I'm not sure if President Trump quite realized what he committed to there, but it's very dangerous stuff if the president wants to keep his pledge to keep us out of endless wars. That's what the man on the street understands.
Kurt Mills, if the president wants to keep his pledge to keep us out of endless wars, he said, he didn't say a pledge to keep us out of endless wars. Technically, that's what the National Security Strategy of 2025 said. Trump said, no new wars. They see how they try to twist the words around. Well, Trump said no more endless wars. No, he said no new wars. He said he's going to end the wars, no new wars. Every single campaign stump speech he gave, he said no new wars. Bombing Nigeria, 100 plus strikes on Somalia, bombing Venezuelan citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, citizens of Colombia, bombing Yemen, supporting bombings on Lebanon, supporting bombings on Gaza, bombings on Iran, bombings in Syria. The list goes on. Escalation in China. Bro, none of those countries have bombed the United States. Let's be real here. So the whole thing, no more endless wars. How about we don't bomb people if they don't bomb us first? How about we don't bomb people just for funsies? How about how about we stop lining the pockets of these shareholders of these defense companies? How about we stop being Israel's bitch? How about Kurt Mills, you grow a fucking pair and admit that Trump said that there's going to be no new wars, not no more endless wars. I hate these slimy hacks. They twist the words. So stupid.
This is all well and good, and if this pageantry, if this deal making results in accords, then I will be the first to celebrate it. And I think that the madman theory of diplomacy will have borne fruit. But if
I will never support any accords with Israel. Right? Never going to hear me say that. Who is this guy, by the way? Because the American Conservative magazine, maybe I'm stupid, right? I'm not in the conservative movement, but I've never seen this guy before in my life. And then he's on Bannon's show. They did an interview with Tucker. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? Kurt Mills. I will happily support a peace accord with Israel if they say, we're going to tell Iran that they can't have ballistic missiles. And if Iran agrees to that, and this is all part of some, effective, like the Venezuela gunboat diplomacy, I will celebrate that. How about actually we give Iran a nuke? I'm laying out my cards. How about actually we give Iran a nuke? How about we give Ibrahim Traore a nuke? Final offer? Actually, I would support the accords with Israel to weaken Iran. Bro, who are you?
But it results in the wars continue and that the average...
Actually, I'm done with this guy. He's irritating me. Okay, but I did want to show you this from Professor Saad Marandi, because Professor Marandi, obviously, very influential Iranian political commentator. Also, he was one of the negotiators with the Iranians for the Iranian government back during, I think, with Ahmadinejad and the JCPOA. But anyways, he gives everyone a very, very sober reality check as to what a war against Iran over ballistic missiles would look like. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Iran's missile capabilities are very extensive, and they're spread out across the country. And they are in many, many underground bases that are very large complexes. So if the Americans would want to attack Iranian missile bases, it would be war. And so, and when the Americans struck Iran once, the Iranians struck back at Qatar, the U.S. base there, and did severe damage. 6 missiles hit, and they destroyed a key U.S. radar installation and so on there.
They try to hide
But if
that.
there's a war, then Iran will do to the U.S. much more damage, much infinitely more damage than last time around. And one has to remember that Iran's military its missile and drone capabilities is not focused on Israel. Most of Iran's capabilities, in fact, the vast majority of Iran's missile and drone capabilities are directed at US forces in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean. Why? Because the United States has been threatening Iran with invasion and attack for 3 decades. So Iran has huge numbers of short-range missiles, medium-range missiles in underground bases that have nothing to do with the Israeli regime. And they're spread out across the Persian Gulf region. And therefore, and drones. So if the United States wages war, then all these regimes, they are complicit. How can they not be complicit? They host bases of the enemy that's waging war. So that would mean a catastrophe for the global market. I've been saying this for years.
That's true, by the way. You know, guess who it is that every single time the U.S. does something stupid or Israel does something stupid, like an American military barracks gets attacked in Iraq or something like that, like it's Iraqi PMF, Popular Mobilization Forces, which are not like directly Iranian, but they're, you know, allied and whatnot, and there's a great deal of cooperation there. But like, you know, that's not even the American bases is not even the real threat. The real you know, non-nuclear nuclear bomb would be Strait of Hormuz. And you know, I had on Professor Zhang of predictive history, and he actually presented something that sounded so crazy, but you know, I don't rule anything out. Personally, I don't believe that the Israelis are entirely, I don't believe that they're super rational. Obviously, they're not super rational people. Obviously. Look at what happened in the 12-day war. You cannot be a rational actor to say, let's have a round two after we now have tipped you off that we're going to do this, and you're expecting this, and you've built up your defenses, and the Russians have helped you, the Belarusians have helped you, the Chinese have helped you build up your defenses. You're not going to be caught off guard by a decapitation strike. They deported millions of poverty-stricken individuals that were susceptible to Mossad co-optation. And also they dismantled a lot of those internal saboteur networks that were doing the drone attacks from within Iran. I'm sure not all, but they clearly got a lot of them. You'd have to be completely irrational to be Israel and say, let's have round two after that. Unless, of course, you say, well, we'll just nuke them. But that also is irrational because, well, when you open that genie bottle up, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Guess who has nukes? Pakistan. Pakistan has a good relationship with the Saudis now. They have like an official mutual defense pact, something like that. Well, the Saudis have gotten a lot closer to the Iranians, and even Iranian proxies, if you can believe it, even they use Iran as a you know, they use Iran as a buffer for communication. They don't talk directly to the Houthis in Yemen, but, you know, Saudis call Iran. Iran conveys the message to the Houthis. And Israel and the UAE has turned everyone against them. Turkey is putting radar systems. Oh, yeah, Turkey's helping too, the Iranians. Turkey's putting Israel, the UAE, they've pissed off everyone. Turkey's putting radar systems in Syria. That freaked out the Israelis this week, putting radar systems there. So if any Israeli Air Force jets try to fly over, you're going to have a problem. And the Israelis, they could bomb, totally okay. They bombed all of Assad's old military assets in the region, a lot of Russian stuff. But, you know, bombing Turkish radars, that is a very big difference now. And that is effectively a Turkish proxy state. What remains of the state of Syria, you know, at least Damascus and areas they control, that is Turkish territory. Idlib is Turkish. Damascus is effectively Turkish. they put up this thin veneer of like Canva edited, new Syrian flag, new Syrian logo. It looks so stupid. It looks like a Superman movie logo. But that is a Turkish proxy state now. So, yeah, you can't just bomb those radars too. They can't do anything about those radars unless they want to pick a direct fight with Turkey. And Turkish military officials met with Iranian military officials in Tehran this week. They have created so many problems for themselves. It is impossible to call the Israelis logical or rational actors. You'd have to be completely brain dead if you wanted to call them rational, logical actors, okay? As it relates to, operations against Iran, right? And so that I don't, but anyways, predictive history, Professor Zhang, he said, well, one of the goals he believes Israel has is create so much chaos, so much bloodshed, maybe create so much, such a blow, such a moral defeat, make the U.S. troops all demoralized, make any U.S. operations in the Middle East demoralized, that the U.S. will leave, and then Israel will take over all of those bases and those assets in the region. Which I think is such a long shot of a stretch, but I say I don't put anything past these people now because they are that insane. They are that irrational. So Israel says, we're going to, create problems in the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we'll get the U.S. to leave. And we'll get to take over their assets. I think that's a long shot. I personally don't believe that's what's going on. But that is something that has been theorized, and it's interesting to, I guess, debate these things, right? Clearly something's going on. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.